following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
All right. Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz and Dan Rylance here. And we're going to be talking about early childhood learning, early learning initiatives and so forth in this edition. And I just want to read something here. The number of children in 4-year-old kindergarten has tripled in Wisconsin since 2001. And 85% of school districts in our state now have some form of a 4K program. But as we as a state are facing a deficit of more than $3 billion. There are some legislators in Madison and some local folks as well who are saying that we just simply can't afford to fund this anymore. Funding does seem to be on the chopping block, and we're here tonight to talk to some folks who are in education to tell us just exactly what that means. There are some suggestions that this could have ripple effects into the private sector as well. So we're going to delve into this tonight and find out exactly what cuts to the program would mean and go forward from there. So joining us for the first half anyway are Patti Vickman, and Patti is, what is your official title?
Human Resource Person.
You're the Executive Director of Human Resources for the Oshkosh Area School District, but we had you here because this is really kind of your baby, and so we wanted to talk about that. And joining us as well is Kelly Butzlaff, and Kelly, you are Director of
Family and Community Partnerships at Head Start.
Okay.
Yes.
UW Oshkosh
That's okay.
Head Start Family Director and what?
Yeah, and Family and Community Partnerships.
Okay, Family and Community Partnerships.
That way I get to work with wonderful people like Patti.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks to both of you for being here and braving the very sub-cold temperatures that are out there. I say sub-cold because I don't even know what the temperature is. But it's cold.
Yeah,
it's cold.
there you go.
So we appreciate your being here. And let's just talk about this. I mean, Governor Walker was saying today, education's going to be cut, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone at this table. What exactly is, what was your passion, I guess, Patti, in starting a 4-year-old kindergarten in the Oshkosh area?
I don't know that I can be given the credit for starting 4K in Oshkosh.
You pushed
pretty close.
But I was
You
an
pushed for
elementary
it, though.
principal of a SAGE school where we had high poverty numbers. And one of the things that our staff always did was we were going to do whatever it took to make a difference for kids. And as we saw our children coming into school, we saw that the gap between those children coming in ready to learn in kindergarten and those who maybe didn't have the same kinds of quality experiences, whether it was the settings that they had grown up in, whether it was developmental delays that they had because of maybe birth conditions that they had, special needs, whether it was language abilities, whether it was just merely the family that they had grown into, there was a single parent, all different kinds of factors. We saw that the gap between the students that were coming in ready to learn and those that weren't was widening. And it was, what can we do as a school community? What can we do as a community to help close that gap? Because what we know as educators is if you start out behind, it's very hard to play catch up. because the world just keeps going faster and faster. And so one of the things that our school had looked at is we looked at all-day kindergarten, and we're able to work then with the district and put all-day kindergarten in place, and we saw a huge advantage to the children from having a day-long experience and being able to have music and art and physical education and being able to have quality time interacting. You know, a lot of times people think school is all about reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we know that to be successful as adults in the real world, you have to get along with others. You have to learn how to share. You have to be able to get your viewpoints across, and you have to be able to respect differences that are out there and be able to work together as teams. So we started hearing about 4-year-old kindergarten out in the state, and a couple of us, myself and the reading coordinator, decided that we would write a grant, and we tried to see if we could pilot a 4-year-old kindergarten at Webster. Well, what we quickly found out was that you can't just do a 4K kindergarten program at a school. You have to do it for the whole district. The state of Wisconsin has information that says that it has to be a universally applied 4-year-old experience. So you can't just say, well, because you come from a poverty family, then you get the experience. Or because you come from a family that speaks English as second language, you get the experience. It has to be universally available to everyone, because who are we to judge which child really needs that experience? And I think Kelly can talk about that as well. We all know that we have families who maybe have given their children lots of experiences, but their children may need social skills because they're the only child in the family. They may come to 4-year-old kindergarten, they can read and write, but they need that social skill development. So it's really about how do we help children get that social and that experience with other children to be able to round them out and give them a great start to school. We also knew that brain development wise, that this is an opportune time to be working with children. So we went to a conference, and we brought along people like Kelly and a couple of others, and we found out that the best practice, which Oshkosh tends to do that both in Head Start and in the district, is that we implement best practice. And best practice was you don't disrupt the kids and make the kids go from the public school to in 4K to their child care center. You try to make it a community collaborative, and you work with the community child care providers. And so maybe Kelly can tell a little bit more about how that process got started.
So certainly. Let me tell you a little bit about Head Start. We've been in the business of early childhood education since our inception. So probably close to 45 years now.
That was the whole goal.
That was the goal of Head Start, was to give kids a head start so they would be ready for kindergarten. And we'd done some great things, and I think we were doing amazing things and working with families, but we work with the poorest of the poor families. Our families are 100% of poverty. It's a family of 4 making just over $21,000. And that's it. And we had kids on a waiting list. And so Patti and I would talk, because we would, of course, be moving our kids from Head Start into her school at Webster Stanley, where she was at that time. And we knew that we still had kids on a waiting list, kids who still needed more. And so we jumped at the chance to be able to collaborate and to work with this, because they aren't her kids or my kids, they're our kids, they're our community, and how are we going to do this the best? And we knew we had to work together.
Okay.
So when we got started, we did a community ask session, which was building awareness, what kinds of skills do people need, and what is the knowledge. And we just openly invited every child care provider in town, Head Start, public, parochial, and we invited everybody together. We had a consultant that worked with us, and we started from the ground basis of what's important for us with kids. We did a strategic plan for about 3 years, and we really envisioned 4K starting in like 3 years later. We didn't realize it would be starting that spring because we had to do some things because of the district and state aid and things like that. But our mission was not just 4K. It started out as how do we support children and families birth through 8. And as a part of that, we have a number of great partners who are at the table. We have the United Way, we have YMCA, we have the Boys and Girls Club, we have pediatricians, we have
The library.
library.
Head Start,
We have and we're forgetting some.
I know, I'm sure.
Birth
Parent
to
connection.
two, parent
Birth to three,
connection,
yes.
all of those. And they all came in, and we all had a very common mission. How do we support children and families and help them be successful? And by getting all those great people around the table, we were able to decide what are some things we need to work on. 4K became just one aspect of what we worked on. Another one was a parent-child resource center. For years, the Oshkosh community would start one up. Somebody would get a grant. They'd go into a house or a place of business, and they'd decide they were going to do this parent resource center, and then pretty soon they couldn't make it go anymore. The grant ran out, and so then it would go away. So we happened to be having this conversation. Lori McGee from the library was working with us. They were going through their strategic planning, and lo and behold, Jeff working with his board and with the strategic planning, there's a parent resource center now at the library. They totally revamped the way they did their children's services to make it more parent friendly, more family friendly, and worked with our group to be able to do that. So we've done some child development days.
We
and
did
they
child
made-
development days, which was really great. We had always done child development days in the district, but opened it up and made it much more child friendly. It was play based now, and all these resources out there. So parents came with their child and then had around the room all the community resources out there, so parents could learn about their community and where else they might be involved. The other thing that we did was this past fall, we did an early childhood economic summit and brought David Lawrence in from the Miami to come in and speak. And it was wonderful to get business folks in the room and to hear David remind us that children's brain development most happens from age birth up to age 5, 90% if I have my numbers correct. And so we need to be fostering that and working with the kids. So can't we work with the kids at a younger age and see what we can do now rather than trying to play catch up way later on in life?
Now, any proposed cuts that are coming to the 4K program, will that only affect 4K, or is that going to kind of be more of a broad-based cut where it's going to affect some of these other initiatives that you've been talking about as well?
I think our other initiatives will go on. We continue to have the strength of our collaboration and the synergy that's going on. So just at our last meeting, Parent Connection was talking about a grant that was going to be coming through the state to do more
Right.
parent education. And because they're a partner with us, we could write a letter of support saying that Parent Connection already has this built-in network where they can connect with the schools and with childcare to be able to make this particular goal happen. The 4K cuts would directly impact the schools and the state aid that comes.
You get what,
to
a half a
help
per pupil payment for,
the first year that it's in operation, yes.
oh, and after that you don't?
Well, it's kind of takes 3 years to get your full payment
Oh, I
in,
see.
but you get it based on the amount of time they're in school. So
Okay.
if you get, $6,000 for a full-time student, you would get half of that because it's a 2.5-hour program.
Right.
Okay, but your program is federal,
Our program is federal.
yours is state. So,
We do have a small number of children that are federally funded, but because we work collaboratively with the school district,
together.
it would certainly make a difference on our
Okay.
dollars
okay,
coming
and this
in.
is volunteer. Every kid who's 4 isn't in,
No.
no.
That's certainly not
Okay.
mandated.
So,
But as a mom of a 4-year-old, I can't wait to get her in there.
okay, so you enroll, you sign up for this?
Yes, we
Okay.
have a website registration process. People put their names in, and then Mrs. Lewis, who will be in here later, does an assignment process based on maybe where the child is going to a daycare or
Okay.
where their grandparents might be if they go the other half of the day by grandma for childcare or wherever the parents want to go. We have 3 school sites, but the majority of sites are out in our childcare centers.
So they stay out there all day?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how about the ones that go to the 3 elementary schools? When they're done in a half day, do they get routed to another place for the other half day? Or how does that work?
That I think we're going to have to talk to Danica for sure. But
Okay,
most of
all right.
those kids, they'll go back to their home or
Or
wherever.
they'll go to a
childcare center or
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me play devil's advocate here. When we were all growing up, there wasn't such a thing as 4-year-old kindergarten. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys are the educators here, but even kindergarten isn't required in the state of Wisconsin, is it? Or is it now?
I'm not sure.
I didn't think that it was. But at any rate, 4-year-old kindergarten, it wasn't even in existence when we were in school. We all turned out okay. Dan. we managed. We're not a
We're getting new
burden.
knees.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would say
But-
there's lots of things that we didn't know that was different when I was growing up and I was a child. We also
So
didn't have
what's-
seat belts. We didn't
Yeah.
have, some
but
of
what's-
those kinds
But
of
what's
things.
different now about kids and their learning or their brain development or what have you?
I think it's what we know about brain development. I think we didn't know back then that 90% of a brain is developed by the time a child was 5 years old. So that in of itself says, oh my gosh, I believe that really early childhood education is in its infancy. We have learned so much within the last 10 to 15 years, and the research continues to grow and change. And we're right now, again, the brain development is telling us we need to do as much as we can from birth to 5. And some of it were things that we automatically did, like read to our kids, that are so important. But we need to continue to foster that, and we need to continue to do more.
Well, that's one of the things I was talking to
Yeah.
Dan about earlier is
Yeah.
that, when we were growing up, our mothers were, I think, for the most part, stay-at-home moms, and they did read to us, and they did spend time with us, taking us to the park or what have you. We don't have that nowadays. And so as I was preparing for this show, I thought, well, maybe that's one of the differences. Could be a big difference in this, but I know you want to
There
jump
are
in
other
here, so
models
go
where
ahead.
they start later. Scandinavian countries don't start their kids until they're 7 years old. So, your research, they would argue that they catch up after a
But
couple years.
Scandinavian countries also spend quite a bit on supporting the family in those early years,
Exactly.
with time off when babies are born and things like that
Yeah,
too.
that's true.
Yeah.
And giving them that experience.
Most definitely.
I grew up in the 50s. Now I'm giving my age here, but
Put that
I
up on
was
the
the oldest of 5 from a farm family, and my mom and dad worked on the farm. Now they were both stay at home, but we really didn't have a lot of interaction except for the fact that they read to me. And I can remember not having kindergarten and going to first grade and really feeling far behind because I wasn't able to know what those things were that were up on the wall. And I think about how that affected me as I was starting school, my confidence level and everything. Now, I remember the teacher pulling my mom in and saying, we got to start working on some of this stuff. And you caught up, but the thing that I did have from my parents was the value system, and I had, the work ethic, and I had those kinds of things. So it didn't take me long to get caught up on some of those other things. But I think life has become so complex these days, and there are just so many things that are out there that families are dealing with. We're not trying to say that early learning is there to take the place of parents. It's
Never.
how can we support parents?
I understand
How
that.
can we help them help their child to be the best that child can be? And sometimes, it's not like we get a driver's license for how to raise your kids,
For sure.
Even the most educated families will come in and say, I'm not sure how to deal with this. Can you help me with this?
Exactly.
And so we need to be all in there together as a community. How do we support? Taking their child to the preschool library sessions and why that's important for their kids and different things like that.
George Will had a column this past week in Northwestern. He's an op-ed writer for the Washington Post. He says, what America needs, says one parent, is more parents who resemble South Korean parents. They want their children to start learning English in first rather than second grade, but only 25% of U.S. elementary schools offer any foreign language instruction at all. I have a grandson who's 7 now in Sweden. He's been taking English for 2 years in school. Koreans are learning English right away because they know that if they want to compete in this global economy of the 21st century, they have to. They have to. And I don't know whether you noticed President Obama's speech, his State of the Union speech, but he said, his first paragraph was, he said, a teacher in South Korea is identified as a nation builder.
Yes.
And that's
Most
what we
definitely.
need is nation builders.
Agreed.
Yeah. But for all of this good things, every time I read a study, we're getting further behind. Every year, U.S. is ranked lower. Why is that? Because not enough of them are in this, or what? I mean, we are really slipping.
I guess I can't speak necessarily on the nation. All
Yeah.
I can say is that we're doing the best we
Yeah, no, I
can in our
understand that.
little corner of the world, and I think these are the types of things that make a difference
I
in our
understand.
corner. And we don't have enough research yet to show this because, again, it's in infancy. But I bet if they give us a chance to do this a little while longer, we'll be able to have the statistics to show it.
I think some of the things too that you have to look at, and not to say that we can't be doing more in math and science and literacy and getting our scores up even more, but it's interesting that in some of those countries, as Bill Daggett would say, is that they don't educate all the kids.
I understand that.
And we don't track kids, and we don't say by the time you get to the end of 6th grade, you have to choose between vocational ed and what type of post-secondary experience you're going to have. We see the promise in every kid. And when we have special needs kids that that are in our classrooms, which are helping our students that do not have special needs gain an appreciation of that diversity and of the gifts that those children bring to the table, that doesn't always happen in the other countries. The one thing that is really interesting is where do these countries send their people for post-secondary? They send them to the United States. And one of the things, when you read some of the studies where we significantly differ from some of the other areas, is not just in the rote recall in reading and math, but in creativity, and in imagination. And when we look at some of the problems that are facing our state today or are facing our country in the future, we need people who can problem solve. We need people who are team players, can work together as teams, and those are the kinds of skills that you can't just learn from a textbook. It comes from interacting with your peers. It comes from valuing that kind of part that's
I think that's
part of our
a really
education.
good point. We hosted 5 exchange students, and they said the difference between their education in the U.S. was that it wasn't all theory and memorization. It was practical. We want to learn something practical.
Right.
And the other thing, on these other countries do have standardized testing. You know, we really don't. Every state has their own thing, and so
Yes.
this state can say, "Oh, we did better in the test
Right,
scores than the
right,
other state,"
right.
but the other state.
It's like comparing apples to
Exactly.
oranges.
So we
Exactly.
don't have, you know, even No
Right.
Child Left Behind didn't establish a
Right.
national thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
I think the Common Core standards coming, the national standards coming through will help a little bit with that, because if you do any traveling in the United States, you really can see we are very diverse in the way. I did some teaching down in the southern part of the United States, and just the standards and the expectations can vary greatly, you know, from state to state.
What's coming with a lot of legislators in other states is that they want to tie student performance to the teachers. I mean, it's all over. In fact, there are about 11 states now who want to eliminate tenure. And so, you know, what this group is doing is attacking the teacher and setting. You know, if you were a teacher in Milwaukee, and you know your job depended on the performance of your students, you'd probably lift a white flag and move somewhere else and have, because they come such poor socioeconomic backgrounds that they simply, it's not the teacher's fault that these kids come to school totally unprepared.
It's not the kid's fault either. And
Exactly.
It's not the
No, of
parents'
course,
fault.
no, but the reality is if you
Yeah.
set her standard, or the teacher the standard, you know, how well her students do, that teacher's going to fail.
I think a lot depends on where the assessment is and how you're setting the standards.
Okay.
If you're taking them where they're coming in and are you able to help them grow, that's a whole different thing than I want everybody to be at this level and you have a very different student that's coming in. You know, David Lawrence said in his keynote speech that one of the greatest things that could reform education across the board would be to have more children coming to school ready to actually learn. And a lot of them are dealing with a lot of other things that
When
are
you
on
set
their
up the
plate.
breakfast program, they can't come to school hungry.
Right,
I mean,
Exactly.
that's, you got to start with something in
Right.
your belly.
right.
Yeah, so yeah, I hear you.
Exactly.
What, you know, I'm sure you guys have read the comments on some of the blogs and so forth that 4-year-old kindergarten is nothing but a glorified babysitting program, you know, and it's really just kind of an out for the parents because they need to put their kids somewhere while they're working. How would you respond to that?
I would say come and see our classrooms and learn about being play-based. We, again, it may look like the kids are in there playing, but every single one of those play-based items are set up there for a reason. And so that housekeeping area is set up for a reason. And it's all labeled for the literacy pieces to it. And everything that happens in that classroom is very strategic and done with a purpose. And it's all on for learning. The kids don't know it. they're having fun and they're playing. And isn't that what we want for a child at 4?
And the real essence is how that teacher interacts with that child.
for sure.
Do you give them open-ended questions that really get them to think about the next step or the next decision you're going to make, or do you just say that's good, keep on playing or something like that? But it's really about working with our teachers, and that's one thing that's been really helpful with our collaborative. If we've been able to take advantage of Head Start training that they bring in, training that we might bring in as a district, we have so that everybody's got the same tools, common language. For instance, in April, we're going to be bringing in a gentleman that's going to be talking about child neglect and abuse. And that will be something the school district, Head Start, all the child care centers will be participating in. And so we're able to provide those large group experiences and have lots of different educators and people who take care of children benefit from those.
How many kids are in Head Start?
In the Oshkosh
Yes,
area, we
yeah.
serve a little over 200 children.
Okay. And you have what, about 700 in the K thing? K4?
4K.
I mean, in 4K?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
about
okay. We
700,
can have
680,
Yeah.
700. Yeah.
Okay.
If funding for this gets cut, and it's kind of leaning in that direction, but we can always hold out hope, I guess. But if it gets cut, what's your backup plan? What will you do? Where will you find the funding?
Well, I think the conversations are there for the school board and the community to have
Okay.
as to what is of value and what needs to get cut. They're not necessarily cutting 4K, they're
Right.
cutting the aid to 4K.
Right.
And so those will be conversations that the community and parents and the school board will need to have, is the value in that program and maybe not somewhere else. And or if there are some cutbacks that need to be happening, how do we still provide some of the experiences that we need to have? Like you're going to hear from Danica about the fact that we do have early childhood programs for special needs students. Now, they've been highly successful when we can put them out with other students who don't have special needs, because they have the great peer models and the role relationships that they can have with those students. So some of that federal funding will still be there for that. But Wisconsin has a long tradition of supporting early learning. I mean, it was the first state to have kindergarten, and we've got to believe that there's a lot of advocates that are out there. David Lawrence was from Florida. The entire state has really taken on a whole impetus to promote early learning. And when we did our summit in Oshkosh in fall, Fond du Lac had one a couple of weeks later. Green Bay had one the year before. Appleton had a breakfast. So we even have connections now with New North and working with how can we get the region more supportive of early learning and the importance of early learning. So these are tough times, but I think we have to really sit down and say, what do we value as a community? What is important? And if, like Dan said, education is really the best way to do nation building, then what's the best way to do that in our community?
Okay.
Question on autism. It seems to be growing every year, maybe because it's overdiagnosed, I don't know, but it's there. How does Head Start and the 4-year-old deal with, are any autistic kids?
Well, I can just tell you that 10% of the children we serve have to have some sort of diagnosed disability. And we work very closely with the school district with that. Had before 4K, have continued that and will continue that to make sure that their needs are met.
Yeah. And your Head Start is not going to be affected by the disaster?
It will be.
A little bit, maybe.
It will be. We will still serve those kids. The classrooms won't be as highly educated as they are. Right now, the beauty of this is that we have those low-income kids in a classroom with a Head Start teacher that has a 4-year degree and a 4K teacher with a 4-year degree. They have two amazing people that are asking those questions. We're going to have to readjust our models, and we obviously won't have those folks there.
Yeah.
So
But your funding is federal. That's
our funding is federal.
that may change, but it won't go away.
Knock on wood.
No, it won't.
I hope and pray, but I never say never these days, unfortunately.
There won't be a
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
president
I wouldn't
may
expect.
veto earmarks, but he's not going to
Yeah,
veto Head Start.
I wouldn't expect it, but again, I never say never.
No, I understand.
So.
You know, and there are innovation grants that are out there, and certainly the way Oshkosh has implemented its 4K in the community collaborative. We are one of the most successful communities in the state, are often called on to do presentations to help other communities get the process going, sharing our materials and things like that. And there are grants out there for innovation, which is taking a very successful model and how do you replicate it and keep it going. So, we're just going to have to become more aggressive as we look for resources, but we have a strong support system with our collaboration, and I think that has helped the agencies
Most
to meet
definitely.
some of their
Sure.
goals, and I know that they will be working with us to achieve the goals for all of the kids in the community, because they're all our kids.
Sure. Well, we want to, bring in the next group that Patti was
Okay.
very great to assemble this whole foursome here tonight.
It's one of her talents.
So I appreciate that very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're welcome.
But before we take a break and switch people out here, what would be your closing thoughts on this issue? Either one of you or both?
I think I would like to say, before people go to those blogs and start writing information and sharing things out there, find out a little bit more about the importance of birth to 5 and the education. Don't automatically assume that because I didn't have it as a child and I turned out okay, that's fine. Find out the information. We are so much smarter than we were on the importance of birth to 5. So let's get the facts and the information before we go ahead and share that. My mother always says to me, who is an amazing mom, boy, I wish I knew half of what you know now to be the amazing mother you are. And that says something. So I think
That's
we
really
have
well
to.
said.
So I think we have to continue with that.
Okay. All right. Anything from you, Patti? Or
I would just say I hope that everyone would view that every child they see walking down the street with their family is our future. And it's our responsibility to ensure that that child has a future, because they're the ones that are going to be our doctors and our lawyers, and they're going to be taking care of us, and they're going to be our educators, and we owe it to ourselves, to our country, to our community, to really be helping our children be the very best that they can be.
Okay, terrific. Just sit tight. We're going to take a short
Okay.
break,
Yeah.
and when we come back, we will be joined by two other folks who are going to be talking to us about the various early learning initiatives that are going on in the Oshkosh School District. We'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money: the Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
How's the leg?
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. And we're joined now by, to my left, Danica Lewis, the Assistant Director of Special Education and Early Learning with the Oshkosh Area School District.
Hi.
And Beth Meller, the Executive Director of the Christian Community Child Center.
Right.
And that's here in Oshkosh?
Yes.
Okay, all right, welcome. Thanks
welcome.
to both of you for
Welcome.
being here. We appreciate it. Now, you've kind of been listening to, the first half hour. And again, I want to thank Patti for assembling this foursome tonight because I think it's a good mixture of people to talk about this issue. So you heard the first half hour. Any thoughts on some of the things that we kind of kicked around in that first segment?
Sure. It was great to hear you guys discussing the importance of the early learning opportunities that we have created here in Oshkosh. And, over the last several years, we've really prided ourselves in not only looking at 4K, but also looking at other opportunities to support families. And I think Patti and Kelly did a nice job of highlighting those opportunities. And, obviously, Beth and my expertise in this is the 4K program, and so we'll be happy to talk some more about that.
Sure.
But
And we'd like to do that.
Yeah. It was great to hear, though, all of the other things that are happening with early learning as well.
One thing, Patti had a Reagan moment. Cheryl asked her if kindergarten was mandatory, and it is mandatory.
There have been changes to the state law regarding kindergarten attendance. So children don't have to start kindergarten when they're 5, but they do have to attend kindergarten before they can enter first grade.
This is a full day program or half day?
It depends on what the district has.
Either half or full.
Correct.
Okay, so it is mandatory.
Okay.
So if we were back there, we'd have to go.
When did that change?
It just changed this year.
Because I was going to say, even as
But
late as
many
last year-
districts were doing it many years before.
Districts had kindergarten, but
Okay.
this is the first year that the state law has changed that does make kindergarten mandatory prior to first grade entrance.
So you don't have to be in kindergarten when you're 5.
Correct.
But before you can go to first grade, you must go through a
Exactly.
kindergarten program. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Want to talk about, you guys do a lot of different things with early learning initiatives, but of course the 4-year-old kindergarten is one of the main things. I want to just touch on the cost here. According to an article in the Oshkosh Northwestern, the program in Oshkosh for not this current school year, but the last school year, 2009 through 2010, was $1.6 million, and that was funded entirely with state dollars. And I know that the United Way is very involved. They're big supporters of this. Have you applied for any monies through United Way to help fund 4-year-old kindergarten?
Not in recent years.
Okay.
In the first couple of startup years where the state funding levels were lower, there was grant money that was applied to the program in order to get things going, especially there's a lot of startup costs with the 4K program with curriculum, and you don't receive full funding for the students the first several years. But at this point, we are fully funded by state dollars.
Okay.
And you're getting half a per pupil payment.
Yeah, there's still a rolling average
there?
applied
Okay.
to that. So the students, you have to be at the number that you're at for 3 years before you get the full half funding for those students. But at this point, even with the rolling average, we do the program is really an efficient program with the community collaborative approach.
Could you give us some statistics, like how many kids are in this program? What 3 elementary schools do they go to? And what are some of the other places that they can go to? And kind of give our viewers kind of an overview of that?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do have 674 students enrolled this year in the 4K program. And that's a little over 80% of what we would expect for kindergarten enrollment for next year.
Okay.
That tends to be the average statewide, that districts have about 80% enrolling in the program. The 3 elementary schools that we're located at this point are Webster Elementary and Oakwood Elementary and Shapiro Elementary. Our other sites are made up of child care centers, Head Start centers, and preschools. One of those centers is Beth's.
Okay, and that's why you're here, Beth. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that we had was, do they stay all day at one place? And the answer was no.
No.
They do go somewhere else for the other half of the day.
Or they
And-
might be at your place all day, right?
So
Right. We have a group that attends our morning session. Our center opens at 6 a.m. and closes at 6 p.m. So some of the children are there 10 hours a day, and they just move to another classroom. They don't have to be transported away from the building during the day.
10 hours a day, that seems like a long time for a child to be someplace.
Well, for a lot of parents,
elaborate a
that's
little bit.
that's their work day plus the time to get back and forth.
Yeah.
And for a lot of families, it does take 2 incomes to take care of and support their family. So, being in a high quality early learning environment is extremely important.
Beth had shared a statistic. We have a group of directors that meets monthly, and Beth had shared a statistic with that group about the number of hours that the average child spends in a care environment prior to school entrance.
Right. If a child is enrolled in full-time care as an infant, and our youngest ones start at 6 weeks, by the time they're 5 and a half, they've spent 12,000 hours in child care. and that's more than the hours that they'll spend in elementary and high school. So the importance of having a really high level of quality in that environment, you can see has a big impact on each individual child.
A first grader in South Korea goes to school all day, and then they stay there for homework till 9 or 10 at night,
Yeah,
starting in the first grade.
what a long day. Yeah. With as Beth mentioned, with the children who are in child care sites where we have 4K, some of them do spend an entire day there
Sure.
for care. For the other students, there's a variety of situations that they're in. You know, some of them may be at home during the day, some of them may be at an in-home provider during the day, and they just come to us for the 2.5 hours for 4K, and then they're on their way for the rest of the day.
This is a sign-up thing, right? That and Patti said you kind of. What are the criteria used to accept a kid into the?
Students just have to be 4 by September 1st.
Okay.
We don't, for both our 4K program and our kindergarten program, we believe in ready schools,
Okay.
meaning that the school is ready for the child, but the child doesn't have to be ready for us. Our job is to meet the child where they're at. So we do offer child screenings for children ages 2.5 to 3.5, but that really is more to look to see if there are developmental concerns or any other types of support we can offer a family.
What if I have a child with a severe disability? Would you take my child?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We, as Patti mentioned in the previous segment, we do have a lot of our children with IEPs, special education children, enrolled in our 4K program. We have several of our programs are what we call integrated 4-year-old kindergarten programs. So in those programs, we have a 4-year-old kindergarten teacher, as well as an early childhood teacher, and a speech and language pathologist that serve that program. So nearly all of our 4-year-olds who are students with special education needs are enrolled in 4K.
And they're mainstream, they're not separate?
Absolutely.
Okay. What if you have a kid with autism that was severe? You couldn't mainstream. Do you have any facilities for them?
We sure do. You know, not every child is intended for a large group situation,
Right.
and for some of our children, they do need a smaller group situation. And we do still have our traditional kind of self-contained special education programs for children that just aren't quite ready for that group experience
I know
yet.
some people freak out. It has to be mainstream for everybody. That's why I asked.
Sure. Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
believe that there
Yeah.
has to be a choice that's right for the child.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what kids are learning in 4-year-old kindergarten.
Sure. I'll let Beth start that question.
All right.
Whoever wants to.
Both can.
So as Patti and Kelly talked about in the first session, it's very play-based. So today, when I peeked into our classroom, they were doing some activities that had to do with Groundhog Day, and thoroughly enjoying, some acting and playing as a big group. There's play centers throughout the room, like a home center where there's a little kitchen set up, and there's small manipulatives in another area where they can do some math activities and puzzles, and a computer to do some other learning activities. So it's a wide variety throughout the room that offers, maybe if there's a theme for the week, special things that are brought into each area. And the children can have some time where they play in an area with 1 or 2 friends or by themselves, and then they have other times where they're working at a table with a teacher, maybe on an art project, so that assessments and evaluations can also be observed. And then things that they do as a large group too, they have large motor activities and just a lot of opportunity for social appropriateness.
Okay.
Good socialization.
Right.
That's a huge goal of our program, really helping children learn appropriate social interactions with their peers and also with adults. A lot of what our teachers focus on is developing those early communication skills.
Okay. This whole concept of 4-year-old kindergarten is such a big thing, and it's a moving target because it's always changing. But we want to talk about other, early learning initiatives that are going on in the district. But before we get into that, is there anything else about 4K, either Dan, that you have a question on, or that either of you would like to specifically talk about before we kind of delve into the other early learning initiatives?
What did we miss?
I think that one of the really great opportunities that being involved as a collaborative effort with the school district has helped our early learning environment. And we have this year about 146 different children that come through our center. And is that our teachers in the 4K classroom go to the training sessions that the school district offers. And they come back and share that with their coworkers that are in other age groups. And there have been some of those educational opportunities that the others can also attend directly. And then with the specialists who come into the classroom, and our other children who are 3 and older, we can access some of those same
So
resources
it's really strengthened your
for
program.
them. It really has
Yeah.
strengthened our program.
I think
And
we got that a little
and
bit the first half
Yeah,
hour. too.
yeah.
definitely benefits the whole community.
And the thing I would say is, in any tough budget times, looking for partnerships is the best way for organizations to survive. And any time that the school district can partner with local businesses, child care centers, Head Start, the university, those opportunities are beneficial to all organizations. So that opportunity for us to create high quality care for kids in the community is beneficial to everyone.
Give us some sense of some of the successes that you've seen with 4-year-old kindergarten. And I realize it's kind of new in our area, when you compare it to other communities or other states even. But what can you point to and say this is a direct result of this program?
Absolutely. One of the things, and I think Beth would agree with this, we'll see if she does, but prior to starting the 4K program, what we heard from a lot of our child care directors was that there were a lot of social emotional concerns with children in child care, a lot of behavioral issues. The number of children being asked to leave child care centers was on the rise. And so as a part of our 4K program, we've spent a lot of time talking about social emotional development.
They didn't want to go there and then they misbehaved? Or?
Probably a variety of
Yeah,
things. Just,
yeah.
When you're in a structured setting, it can be hard for children to know how to follow the rules or what expectations, if they're different at home than they are in the child care center. So one of the big things that we have focused on in our professional development with our 4K teachers is social emotional development. So we've looked at some specific programs and strategies that they can implement in their classroom. And in a lot of situations, the centers and the sites that we partner with have taken on those same types of strategies.
Right, and it's really surprising for a lot of the children who come in September and haven't ever been in a group environment before, how quickly through the activities and just all the developmental processes that they go through in that classroom, how quickly they're able to learn and to become friends and interact with each other, and how quickly a lot of those things turn around.
Okay.
And as a result of that, when the kids enter kindergarten, we hear from kindergarten teachers, wow. These kids that used to come in with no previous experience, again, with a variety of levels of expectation, are now coming in ready to learn. They already know how to be a part of a group. They already know that if you want to talk, you'd raise your hand when you're in a large group, or they know how to play with other children. So that really has been something that tangibly, even in a short period of time, we can see the results of.
Okay. When Patti and Kelly were here in the first segment, we talked a little bit about a backup plan if funding for 4K gets cut. And what Patti was saying is that just because the state aid might get cut doesn't mean the program's going to get cut. The money may have to come from somewhere else. I don't want to put you on the spot, and you're not running for the school board, but if you had to look at the overall district's budget and say, okay, the state aid's been cut, this program I firmly believe in, and it's so vital to the kids' success, where would you kind of pick some money from to help fund it?
That's a tough question.
It is.
There's so many strong needs within our school district, and pre-K-12, there's great programs that unfortunately we're at risk of losing with the current financial situation. I would hate for us to be in a situation like that. If we were, I think we would have to look creatively at funding sources and see, like you mentioned earlier, are there grants in the community that we can potentially tap into? Through the partnerships that we've established, are there ways that quality programming can continue to be offered? I think to put early learning against any other program in the district, I don't want to be in a situation where we have to do that.
Right.
She won't have to. The school board will have to do it.
And that'll be a tough
That'll
decision
be a
for
tough
them.
decision.
The school board, many of the members of the school board have spoken in support of early learning, but certainly they're also in support of the other programs in our district that do support students.
Yeah.
I'd get rid of the 12th grade, but
So that's thinking outside the box.
all my kids said, this was a waste. Maybe they're not normal, but this is bad to ask this question after we're talking about cuts, but do you ever see a time when we'll teach foreign language in these early situations? I mean, what cultural linguists tell us that the best time for someone to learn a language is before they go through puberty. We don't have any language courses in this country, hardly, none in Oshkosh, very few in Wisconsin, that teach foreign language before puberty. Do you ever envision that as something that's important, or because everyone in the world speaks English now, we don't have to teach a second language? What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. It's very important. And, you know, I think, unfortunately, when we do face these tough budget situations, foreign language is something that's looked at as a cuttable program.
Well, and it was cut. It was the French and German was cut in the middle schools. But my argument is that's too late to teach foreign language. You know.
Well, and certainly the capacity to learn, as Kelly was talking about earlier, that the large segment of brain development happens when kids are age birth to 5, and so certainly that's the time when brains are malleable.
Yeah.
Right, and there is throughout several of the child care centers, you know, there's a little bit of language taught, you know, other languages, but not anything.
You know, those kids little are like parrots. They can say any word in any language.
Yes.
You know, you get to my age, I go, I can't do it anymore, you know? So, I mean, it's natural. It is that brain development. But they can hear and they can pronounce words that you and I as adults can't. They don't have accents when they pronounce the words.
Well, and you know, when we talk about creating community partnerships, I mean, that would be a wonderful partnership to create with the university, you know, to bring in students who are learning to be teachers of foreign language and allow them to practice within our 4K programs. And, you know, again, looking creatively at things to see how we can meet the needs of multiple organizations.
Sure.
21st century demands Arabic and Chinese, and I don't think there's too many people around here that can teach that. You know, they are the languages of the 21st century.
Yep.
And we've started offering Chinese within our upper grades, but again, not the lower grades.
It's too late.
Yep. Well, let's talk about some of the other early learning initiatives that we have going on in the district. Beth, can you kind of share some of those with us? Or is that a better question for Danica?
That's probably a better one.
I think
for
she's
Danica.
looking at me.
Okay, all right.
Well, you know, as Patti talked about, we do have the family space at the public library, and that space has been fabulous for getting families out to the library. A lot of great resources there for them. There are also organizations that hold parent training sessions there. So Child Care Resource and Referral has used that space, as well as family service, family support. We also have started the Imagination Library through the United Way. And I don't know if Sue Ponick has been on talking about that program at all, but
You know, she mentioned it.
Sure.
I think she's been on a number of times, and she's mentioned it, but she's never really gone into it. So if you want to elaborate a little bit, that'd be great.
The Imagination Library is a program that provides one free book a month delivered to the homes of children ages birth to 5. And any child who lives in the Oshkosh area is able to sign up for that. One age-appropriate book is delivered to their home each month, and all that we ask is that parents read the book to their child at least once. If they're anything like my kids, they'll read it about 20 times before that next book arrives. But that program is funded through the United Way and also through donations that people make specifically to the Imagination Library. Coming up, I believe it's in March, is the is Oshkosh Smarter Than a Fifth Grader event through the United Way, and that event is now on the 4th year of being held, and that event is solely to benefit the Imagination Library. So
where they ask questions of adults and the kids are there to help?
they do, and you know, every year we take second place for the school district team, so I'm hoping that this is our year. But
it's a great idea.
It's a great event, and the
it
kids
really
are
is.
involved with it as well, and you know, so I would definitely encourage people to come out for that event and take it in. There's a pizza party afterwards, and a great event to benefit that initiative.
Sure.
We also do partner with several other agencies in town. Family Services is going after a grant right now to hopefully provide some additional services as far as in-home visiting to families. That's definitely an area that is in need. I think those are some of the big ones that we have been able to offer within the community, again, through this coming together of different agencies serving families.
Well, on the Oshkosh Area School District's website, I think that's where I saw this, was a brochure. It's a 2-page brochure of all the various things that are offered for the different age groups, you know, up to age 4, or maybe it's up to age 5. And it's a wonderful thing to see and look at, and there's additional information in there on who to contact. So I would encourage folks to go to the school district's website and take a look at that. And there's a lot of other things on there as well about early learning initiatives and what have you. So, and you can probably also enroll for 4-year-old kindergarten through there too, can't you?
Absolutely, yep. Our link is right up on the website. We also, for families that aren't quite sure if 4K is the right choice for their child, we do have a video on our website, on the Ready for
Yes.
Learning website,
Yep.
where parents can learn a little bit more about the 4-year-old kindergarten program, community members as well, just to see exactly what the program does look like and learn a little bit more about its advantages.
That may be one of the videos that I watched. Is that like about a 13-minute video, I think?
There's 2 separate videos. There's
Okay.
one that is just kind of early learning in general, talking about kind of the collaboration that has
Maybe
happened
that's
in
the one I
Oshkosh.
saw.
That might have been the one that you saw. The Ready for Learning one's a little bit shorter than that, and talks with parents and teachers about the program.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Where are you located?
We're on Jackson Street,
Okay,
just beyond Snell Road.
okay. Oh, I know that one.
So-
Okay, sure. On the right going
Oh,
north.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
I was
okay.
trying- yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a big place. I mean, it's
It is.
large.
It is.
Yeah.
We-
How many
we-
people do you have there enrolled?
In our 4K program, we have about 44 children.
Okay.
Okay. But you have a larger daycare operation too, don't you?
Right, and in that we have about 146. That includes the 4K children.
And would that
So
include
that's
some Head
6
Start
weeks.
children too? That would.
No,
No.
we don't have a Head Start
Okay.
site at our location.
Okay.
And how large is your staff?
We employ about 40 people.
Okay. Well, so that's I mean, that's a good ratio of,
Yeah.
staff to students.
Right, and we're open 12 hours a day, so we have we use a lot of education students from the university as our part-time staff too. So
So you're open like
it
6
works
to 6?
great.
Or?
Yes.
Wow.
The-
Going to heaven.
One of the advantages, obviously, to having a community collaborative program is that our sites are located throughout the city.
Yeah.
So, we really aren't limited just to where schools are,
Right.
but we're really where the kids are. So, most of the locations where we do hold the program, there's at least 20 kids that are there all day anyway.
Sure.
And so we're either just bringing a different teacher into their classroom for a component of the day, or they're walking down the hallway to a classroom for 4K learning. So, it really is less disruptive to the students as well. When the program is right where they're at.
Sure. Well, I think during the course of this entire hour, we've, kind of dispelled some of the negativism that's out there, the negativity that's out there about 4-year-old kindergarten. But what would either of you say to the people who say this is nothing but a glorified babysitting program? Nothing more, nothing less. This is just what it is. People are working, they're working long hours. Sometimes they're working multiple jobs. They have to have a place for their kids to be, and they don't want to pay a babysitter. So this is what they have. How would you respond?
Just as a matter of fact, the program only runs for 2.5 hours. So I think that if someone had to take their child to a 4K classroom and back, that wouldn't reasonably probably help anybody in a work day. And I guess, I would just reiterate what you heard in that first half an hour is to visit the website and look at the video and maybe talk to somebody whose child has had an experience, or even go into one of the community sites, make a call and go in and visit them and experience it firsthand, see what's going on, and find out about the really great experiences that children in our community are able to have.
Sure. Danica, we've got less than a minute left, so you get the last word.
Oh, great. Well, what I would definitely say to folks is please check it out. Please learn more about the program. Certainly within the Oshkosh community, it's in everyone's best interest for us to have high quality early learning experiences. That's not to say 4K is the only high quality early learning experience within the community. There certainly are others. But it's just one more way for agencies to partner together to improve the programming that we have for children.
Okay, excellent. Thanks to both of you for being here very
Thanks for
much.
being here.
Thank you.
And thanks to Patti and Kelly in the first
the
half
whole
hour.
thing, yeah.
And do go to the Oshkosh Area School District's website and check it out, because there are a lot of very good informational things that you can find there. Not just about the district and this, well, not just about this, but about the district overall. So anyway, thanks to all of our guests, and thanks to you for joining us. We will
Nice
see
to
you
see you
next
again.
time.
Thank you.
Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Well, that went well. We filled that up nicely.